Take her bed, we need it more. You'd expect shouting after a sentence like that. Anger, shock, maybe even tears. But I didn't give them any of that. I just smiled, while still lying in it. Let me take you into that room. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It was late afternoon, the kind of quiet that settles into old houses, the ticking clock, the faint hum of distant traffic, the weight of stillness pressing into your chest. I was resting in my bed, the same one I had slept in for over 30 years, the same one where I had recovered from illness, read books, and watched seasons pass through the window beside me. And then the door opened, slowly. Not a knock, not a warning, just opened. 3 figures walked in. My grandson, Calum Vantor, and 2 men I had never seen before. They carried equipment, metal frames, folded parts, the kind you don't bring unless you're planning to take something apart. They stopped when they saw me. I looked at them. They looked at me. And in that silence, something very clear passed between us. They didn't expect me to still be there. Then Calum said it, calm, casual, like he was talking about moving a chair. Take her bed. We need it more. Not can we. Not should we. Just take it. So let me ask you something, right? What would you have done? Would you have argued? Demanded answers? Called for help? I didn't. I adjusted the blanket slightly, met his eyes, and said, okay. And that's when everything changed, because what they saw in that moment was a weak, tired, 79-year-old woman who had already given up control. What they didn't see was that I had been waiting for this exact moment, watching, listening, letting them believe every single thing they wanted to believe. You see, people make mistakes when they think you're powerless. And Calum, he had made a very big one, as the 2 men stepped closer to my bed, reaching for the frame beneath me. I folded my hands quietly over my chest and thought, go on, show me how far you're willing to go, because this didn't start today. It started months ago, and by the time they walked into that room, I already knew exactly what they were trying to do, and, more importantly, I knew how it would end. It didn't start with the bed, it started with kindness. That's how these things usually begin, isn't it? Not with force, not with cruelty, with help, with concern, and with someone saying, you shouldn't be doing this alone anymore. That someone was my grandson, Calum Vantor, 34 years old, charming when he needed to be, and just desperate enough to make it believable. He showed up at my door one evening with a suitcase and a tired smile. Just for a little while, he said, until I get back on my feet. And I let him in. At first, he was everything you'd hope for. He cooked, cleaned, checked in on me constantly. Did you take your medication? Let me handle that bill. You shouldn't strain yourself. It felt comforting until it didn't, because slowly, quietly, things began to shift, small things at first. He started answering my phone. Oh, it was just a telemarketer, he'd say. Then my mail began disappearing from the entry table. I sorted it already, he'd explain. Bills I used to pay myself, suddenly handled. Paperwork I didn't remember signing, already filed. Let me ask you something. At what point does help stop being help? Because I remember the exact moment it changed for me. It was the way he started watching me, not with care, with calculation. Then came Marvella, 31, his girlfriend, polite, soft-spoken, always smiling, but her eyes, they didn't match her tone. She studied everything, the layout of the house, where I kept documents, when I slept, and when I entered a room, conversations stopped, mid-sentence, every time. That's when I started paying attention, really paying attention. I began testing them, forgetting things on purpose, repeating questions, moving slower than I needed to, and what I saw in return wasn't concern. It was relief. A relief that I was becoming exactly what they needed me to be, easier, more manageable, more replaceable. Then one night I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Their voices, low, urgent, from just outside my door. "If we move fast," Calum whispered, "it's all ours before anyone questions it." Silence. Then Marvella. "She's already halfway there, just keep it consistent." Halfway where? That question stayed with me. So the next morning I went looking, through drawers, through folders, through papers I hadn't touched in months. And what I found didn't just answer my question, it changed everything. Because sitting right there, signed, stamped, nearly processed, were documents transferring ownership of my home out of my name and into his, along with something else, something far worse, a medical evaluation, declaring me mentally unfit. I sat there for a long time, holding those papers, and then I said something very quietly. "Oh, I see. Because now I understood the game, and instead of stopping it, I decided to play along, but not the way they expected. If they thought I was fading, then I would disappear right in front of them. That was the moment I made my decision. No confrontation, no accusations. Because people like Kylam and Marvella, they don't panic when you argue. They panic when you cooperate too easily. So I gave them exactly what they wanted. I slowed down even more, forgot things I had just said, left sentences unfinished. Sometimes I would stare out the window for minutes, pretending I didn't recognize my own garden. And every time I did, I watched them. Their reactions, their whispers, their timing, and what I saw confirmed everything. They weren't worried about me. They were preparing, quietly, efficiently, systematically. But here's what they didn't know. While they were building their plan, I was building mine. Her name is Iverna Solk, 52. We had known each other for years. She used to work in legal administration, the kind of person who understands paperwork and how people manipulate it. I didn't call her. I couldn't. So I waited for the one day Calum left me alone long enough, and I walked, slow, careful, measured, not like a weak old woman, like someone who knew exactly how much strength she still had. When Iverna saw me, she didn't ask unnecessary questions. She just listened. Every detail, every document, every shift in behavior. And when I finished, she said one thing. "They're rushing. That's good for us." For us, not me. Us. That's when this stopped being survival and became strategy. Over the next few days we worked carefully, quietly. No sudden moves, no suspicion. Iverna confirmed it. The documents were fraudulent. The medical evaluation was fabricated. And most importantly, they weren't finished yet. They need one more push, she told me. Something that proves you can't resist. So I gave them that too. I became bedridden, completely. Stopped walking around the house. Let them bring me food. Let them adjust my medication. Let them believe I was slipping faster than expected. And then we added the final piece, a small recording device placed just beneath my bedside table, close enough to catch everything, clear enough to remove doubt. Now all we needed was for them to act, and they didn't disappoint. One evening I heard it again, Marvella's voice. "We need that room cleared before Friday." Calum replied without hesitation, "She won't fight it. She barely knows what day it is." That was it. That was the moment I knew. They weren't waiting anymore. They were moving, fast, which meant so was I. I stopped taking the medication that dulled my mind, let my thoughts sharpen, let my awareness return completely, and then I waited, for footsteps, for voices, for that door to open. And when it finally did, and Calum walked in with those two men and said, "Take her bed, we need it more," I didn't feel fear. I felt certainty, because everything I needed was about to happen, and all they had to do was keep talking. They thought they were removing me, but they were walking straight into evidence. The room changed the moment those men stepped closer. You can feel it when something crosses a line, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet shift, like air leaving a sealed space. Metal clicked softly as they adjusted their grip on the bed frame. One of them hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. Before I could even breathe, Calum answered for me. "She won't remember any of this. Just do it." That sentence, clear, direct, certain, exactly what I needed. Let me ask you, how often do people reveal everything when they think no one's really listening? I stayed still, hands folded, eyes soft, watching, recording. They began lifting the mattress slightly, testing the weight. The frame creaked beneath me. Still I didn't resist. Instead I asked quietly, "Where will I go?" Simple question, but questions force answers. Calum didn't even look at me when he said, "We'll figure something out." Marvella stepped in, smoother, colder. "There's a facility, temporary, but her tone carried something heavier, final, permanent, and in that moment, there it was, intent, not care, not confusion, removal. One of the workers shifted uncomfortably. "This doesn't feel right," he muttered, and that's when Calum snapped, sharp, irritated. "You're being paid. Do the job." Another piece, another layer, everything stacking exactly as it needed to. Then they lifted me slightly, just enough to slide the frame. My hand gripped the side rail, not to stop them, to steady myself, because I needed to be close. Close enough to see his face clearly, close enough to make sure he heard me. I leaned in slightly toward Calum and whispered, "I hope you've said everything you need to." For the first time, he paused. His expression shifted, not fear, not yet, but confusion, a crack, small but real. "What does that mean?" he asked. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because right then, a sound cut through the house. A knock, firm, sharp, not hesitant. Everyone froze. The workers stopped mid-motion. Marvella turned toward the hallway. Calum frowned. "Were you expecting someone?" No one answered. The knock came again, louder this time, and in that silence I closed my eyes for just a second and exhaled slowly. Right on time. Because what was standing on the other side of that door wasn't a surprise. It was the end of their plan and the beginning of everything they didn't see coming. The third knock didn't wait. It came down harder, final. Calum walked out of the room, irritation already in his voice. "Yeah, all right, coming." You could hear it in his steps, confidence, control, the belief that Whatever was on the other side, he could handle. He opened the door, and everything changed. 2 officers stood there, calm, still, unmoving. Behind them, Iverna Solk, and beside her, a legal representative holding a folder thick enough to end everything. "Calum Vantor?" one of the officers asked. That confidence? It cracked instantly. Back in the bedroom I heard the shift, the silence stretching too long, the kind of silence that only happens when reality interrupts a lie. "What is this?" Calum asked, his voice tighter now. "We've received a report regarding coercion, fraud and unlawful property transfer," the officer replied. And just like that, the house no longer belonged to him. It never did. They entered the room quickly. The workers stepped away from the bed immediately, almost relieved. Marvella froze, her composure slipping for the first time. Iverna walked straight to me. No panic, no rush, just quiet confirmation. "It's done," she said softly. I sat up. No hesitation, no weakness, and for the first time, Calum really looked at me, not as something fragile, but as something he didn't understand. The recordings were played, every word, every instruction. "On, take her bed." "She won't remember." "You're being paid. Do the job." Layer by layer. It all collapsed. The documents followed. Forgery, fabricated medical evaluation, attempted transfer of ownership. Complete. Undeniable. "You planned this?" Calum asked me, his voice barely holding together. I met his eyes. I paid attention. No anger, no raised voice, just truth. And that was enough. They took him out of the house in silence. Marvella soon after. No performance left, no control to hold on to. The workers gave statements and left cleared of wrongdoing. And just like that, the noise was gone. Days passed. Quiet returned. And legal processes moved forward exactly as they should. The fraudulent transfer was voided. The fake medical report was struck down. Charges were filed, serious ones. Word spread through the family, not rumours, facts. There was no version of the story where they weren't responsible. And me? I stayed, in my home, in my room, in my bed. A few mornings later, sunlight filled the space again, warm, steady, familiar. Iverna sat beside me with a cup of tea. No urgency now, no tension, just stillness. I ran my hand along the edge of the bed frame, the same one they tried to take while I was still in it. "They thought I didn't understand," I said quietly. Iverna gave a small nod. "They usually do." I leaned back slowly, settling into the pillow, not as someone who had been spared, but as someone who had seen everything and allowed it to unfold exactly as needed. The house was mine. My name was intact. And the silence, it finally felt like it belonged to me again.